sports, Alex Eala makes history in the U.S. as the first Filipino tennis player to compete at the Indian Wells Open. TJ Manotok has that story.
Fresh off a strong start to the season, including impressive performances in New Zealand, Australia, and the Middle East, Eala says the first 2 months of the year have given her plenty of momentum.
No Filipino player had ever competed in the main draw at Indian Wells. Not once in the entire history of the tournament. Then Alex Eala showed up ranked 31st in the world, received a first-round bye as a seeded player and changed that history before hitting a single ball in competition. The fifth Grand Slam just got its first Filipino, and the story is only getting started. How far do you think Alex Eala will go at Indian Wells this year? Drop your prediction in the comments right now. Quarterfinals, semifinals, or further? Let's put this moment in proper context before anything else, because the word historic gets used so loosely in sports coverage that it sometimes stops meaning anything. This one is actually historic.
I think I have a lot of positives to take away. Of course, the atmosphere in each tournament has been amazing, and it's been a different start this year than any other year I've ever had. So, yeah, I'm very happy with it.
The 20-year-old Filipina continues to grow both on and off the court since her breakout performance at last year's Miami Open when she took down 3 former Grand Slam champions and made it to the semifinals.
Not just on the court, but as a person in general, I've matured a lot. I think those were I'm still in my formative years, only being 20, but in terms of on-court as well, I've gained a lot of experience and at a much higher level than I used to compete. So I like to say I'm a better version of myself now.
Indian Wells has been running since 1976. 50 years of professional tennis in the California desert. 50 years of WTA and ATP draws featuring the best players in the world across multiple generations. Steffi Graf, Monica Seles, Serena Williams, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic. The list of champions at this tournament is essentially a roll call of the greatest players in the sport's modern era. And in all 50 of those years, not a single player from the Philippines had ever appeared in the main draw until now.
Eala is also feeling the support from Filipino fans around the world, including many who came to Indian Wells hoping to watch her compete. A lot of fans already came out just to see her practice.
I've been coming to this tournament for 10 years.
Oh wow, so now you have someone to cheer for.
Finally have a Filipino here.
You could see she has the skills.
She has skills, of course. That's natural form.
We come here every year.
Okay.
Every
She
year.
does.
Now we came
First
here
time here.
because she's also here.
Of course.
Now we're on this.
Yeah.
So
We're in this together.
Alright, so you're gonna watch on Friday as well?
Win or lose.
Alex Eala did not just get into Indian Wells. She got in as a seeded player. She is the 31st seed in the BNP Paribas Open Draw, which means the tournament recognized her ranking, gave her a first-round bye, and placed her in a section of the bracket that accounts for her position among the top players in the world. She did not fight through qualifying rounds to earn her spot. She walked into the draw as someone the tournament structure is designed to protect. That distinction matters because it tells you where she is in the global rankings conversation right now. A first-round bye at Indian Wells is not a gift. It is earned entirely by ranking points accumulated across an entire season of professional competition. You cannot get a bye through charm, through marketing, or through viral moments. The algorithm does not care about fan bases or Nike deals or trending clips. It cares about wins and losses against professional opponents in counted tournaments. And Eala has accumulated enough of those wins to sit at 31st in the world and receive the kind of draw treatment that players spend years working toward.
Eala will face the winner of the match between Diana Yastremska or Zhang Shuai in the second round. A win there could potentially set up another showdown with world number 3 Coco Gauff, whom she faced earlier this year. But Eala says her focus remains on her own game.
Now, let's talk about what the road ahead actually looks like because the draw is not a gentle one. She opens in the second round against the winner of the first round match between Zhang Guai and Diana Yastremska. Neither of those players is a pushover, and the fact that it is framed as an easy opener because Eala gets a bye should not obscure what she is actually walking into. Jianguai is ranked 62nd in the world and has 3 WTA singles titles to her name. She is a Grand Slam doubles champion and has reached the quarterfinals of both the Australian Open and Wimbledon in singles. She has been a professional tennis player for over a decade and has the kind of experience that does not show up cleanly in a current ranking number. She knows how to compete in big tournaments. She knows how to win matches on hard courts. And she will arrive in the second round having just played and won a competitive first-round match, which means she will be matched sharp in a way that Eala coming off a bye will not be. Yasta is a different kind of challenge. She is ranked 52nd currently, but reached the Australian Open semifinals as recently as 2024. She is a powerful ball striker with the ability to take over a match when she is hitting freely. She has match-winning ability against top players and the kind of game that can produce excellent results on hard courts at major events. Against either of these opponents, Eala will need to be at her best from the opening game. When that match and the potential Coco Gauff rematch comes into view, Gauff is the 4th seed. She also received a first-round bye. She opens against either Bianca Andreescu or a qualifier. If the bracket falls in the expected direction, Gauff and Eala could meet again in the 3rd round or later. The last time these two played was Dubai, where Gauff won 6-0, 6-2. That scoreline is honest and worth acknowledging directly. It was not a competitive match. Yaya was blanked in the first set and never found consistent footing in the second. She won 2 games in the second set, and that was the extent of her resistance against a Gauff who was playing at a very high level. But Ai's own account of that match tells you something important about her mental approach. She said she always learns something when she shares the court with Gauff, that she views Gauff as a role model and an incredible competitor, and that she would love to face her again with those lessons applied. That is not the response of someone who is intimidated. That is the response of someone who is building, who treats a 6-0, 6:2 loss as information rather than trauma.
Alex. Go back. Go back. Alex, go back. Sorry, I lost my stand. Okay. Alex. It's hard. Good luck, Alex. I got it.
The entire arc of Eala's career so far has been about taking difficult lessons and converting them into competitive growth. She left the Philippines as a teenager to train at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain, which is not a comfortable or easy environment. It is a demanding high-standard training setup where players are expected to compete at a level that prepares them for professional tennis at its most serious. She went through qualifying rounds, ITF circuit matches, early professional losses that were not on anyone's television, and ground her way up to the rankings she holds today, 1 point at a time. The Miami Open last year was the moment that redefined her public profile. She beat Iga Świątek, the then world number 2, in one of the most significant upsets the WTA Tour had produced from a player at her ranking level in recent memory. She reached the semifinals of that tournament and announced to the global tennis audience that whatever she was building, it was real. That result is what put her on the map in the language she herself used. Everything since then has been operating at a higher level than anything that came before it. The 2026 season has continued that trajectory. The Australian Open appearance, the Dubai quarterfinal run where she beat Jasmine Paolini, Saran Syria, and Hailey Baptiste before running into golf. 3 wins against ranked opponents, including a victory over a player ranked in the top 10 before meeting one of the best players in the world in a match that went Gauff's way convincingly. That is a credible tournament run regardless of how the final result looked. And now Indian Wells, where she has never played before, where no Filipino has ever played in the main draw before, and where she arrives as a seeded competitor with a fan base that has already demonstrated it will travel to watch her practice. That last point deserves its own treatment because it is part of what makes this moment genuinely bigger than a single player's career milestone. The Filipino fans who showed up at practice court 6 during training session earlier this week were not there because the draw was exciting or the weather was nice. They were there because Alex Eala was there. One fan told reporters he had been coming to Indian Wells for 10 years, and this was the first time he had a Filipino player to cheer for. Another said they come every year, but this year they came because she is here too. Win or lose, They said we are in this together. That specific dynamic, a diaspora community showing up in numbers for a player who represents them at a tournament they've been attending as general tennis fans for years, is what the Eala effect actually looks like at ground level. It is not abstract cultural influence or social media metrics. It is people in the California desert with Philippine flags who found their reason to care about more than just tennis at Indian Wells. The tournament's own website wrote about it. They called EA one of tennis's most delightfully unkept secrets and described the atmosphere around her arrival as evidence that the Eala effect is real and growing. That is the tournament writing about a player's impact before she has played a single competitive match in their draw. That is not standard coverage. That is an acknowledgement that something unusual is happening around this particular competitor. The WTA as a whole should be paying close attention to what is happening around Eala because what she represents for the sport's growth in Southeast Asia is the kind of opportunity that does not come around often and does not stay open forever. Described it as a great time for women's tennis in the region. For players from Southeast Asia in the same main draw at a top-level event is a data point about the region's development that the WTA would have struggled to produce a decade ago. And EA is the clearest evidence of why that development matters. She is not a symbolic presence. She is the 31st seed. She beats top 10 players. She reaches quarterfinals at WTA 1000 events. She competes in a way that makes the athletes who grew up watching her want to pick up a racket and believe it is possible to reach this level. The Nike visit before Indian Wells was another layer of the story. They lined their walls with moments from her career. They centered her Filipino identity in the design of her gear, the Sampaguita-inspired shirt, the specific nod to her cultural roots through the national flower. They had her recreate her celebration from the Su8 win, the moment that changed the trajectory of her career. Nike does not do that for players they are uncertain about. That level of investment in telling a player's story is reserved for athletes they have identified as long-term pillars of what the brand wants to represent. Manny Pacquiao, the most famous Filipino athlete in history, watched Eala compete and said seeing her carry the Philippine flag filled him with national pride. He told her to keep working. She responded by saying she still has a long way to go before any comparison to Pacquiao makes sense, which is both accurate and the kind of self-aware, grounded response that keeps a player focused on the right things when the attention gets overwhelming. She is 20 years old. She is the first Filipino player in the main draw at Indian Wells. She is seeded 31st at the 5th Grand Slam. She has a potential rematch with the 4th seed in her half of the draw. She has fans who traveled to watch her practice session and chanted her name outside the players' lounge on a Monday morning. The draw is open. The history has already been made. What happens from here is the part nobody knows yet. But the people who were at practice court 6 this week, flags in hand, are not going to miss it. 50 years of Indian Wells, countless players, countless champions, countless historic moments, and not a single Filipino in the main draw until Alex Eala walked in as the 31st seed with a first-round bye and a fan base that traveled to watch her train. The history is made. The tournament has started. Hit like, subscribe, and follow along because this story is just